are as very few details trickled through. What becomes apparent is a major shift in the U.S. administration, or at least in its public stance, and at the same time, a game changer for the Middle East. This intervention, do you think, will really change how the political map looks from now on?
Maybe not the political map yet, as in the geographical map. I don't know. But, this is a large nation state we're talking about. Iran is one of the largest countries in the region, one of the most populated. And this is, potentially, if it escalates into a full-on war between the U.S. and Iran, if neither side de-escalates and takes an off-ramp, this can go on for years. This is reminiscent of the memory of the 1980s Iran-Iraq war for Iranians. And for Americans, this can potentially look like Afghanistan and Iraq, maybe even the two combined. This can be catastrophic, going to war with a country like that. I don't know if this is going to be continuing the escalation. It can very well be. I mean, President Trump just escalated this war to a whole new level, basically bringing the U.S. into this. And then at the end of his post, he says, it's now time for peace. I think that sort of is the paradox or the contradiction, or maybe this lack of strategy that his administration has been pushing. One thing that was promoted during the election campaign, calling him the president of peace, saying that he's going to bring peace to the Middle East, potentially to the world. It was promised that he would end the war between Russia and Ukraine. It was promised that he would bring peace to the Middle East and the suffering in Gaza. None of that happened. We didn't see any of that peace happening. Negotiations did happen with Russia, with Ukraine. Negotiations did happen in Gaza with Israel, but peace didn't come. These negotiations have not been successful. Diplomacy was not successful. And this is just the third instance. So he entered negotiations with Iran showing a serious interest, but the process of that negotiation was failure, just like the other two negotiations for peace. So I think this idea of how do you make peace? How do you do diplomacy? What does diplomacy even mean? It sounds like, in his view, in his administration, it means lack of awareness and understanding of what it actually means to negotiate and to do diplomacy, the concessions that you have to make, the give and take. You go to the table, you give something and you take something. It's not just about giving. It's not just about taking and not giving. It's not about unconditional surrender. So I think this is basically the embodiment of that thinking and that course of action.
We're seeing on camera Donald Trump's post on Truth Social. Meanwhile, Negar, I want to ask you one question. Leveraging your Iran expertise, is this a time where we should look at the minorities in the country, the Kurds and others? Could they be taking this as a cue for their own action and to advance their own interests?
I mean, there are a lot of groups that are opposed to the central government in Tehran, minorities across the borders, like you mentioned, ethnic groups, also not just ethnic groups and minorities, various different middle class, working class, who have political grievances, economic, social, cultural, and people have shown this in protest after protest against the government with very radical political slogans. And I think the Israelis were also hoping or depending on this to happen. And now is your time to fight this regime or rise against this regime, essentially signaling that they're weakening the regime and so the Iranians can take over. But we haven't seen anything in the past week. What we've seen in the country is just chaos and fear and shock and people scrambling to save themselves and their families from the bombing that, from the perspective of the civilians, it's random. There have been a lot of civilian casualties, 600 people, between 400 to 600 people killed, thousands injured, and many people have been displaced in the country, not knowing where is safe and where they can go. So I think the immediate reaction right now to people is how to make myself safe, my family safe, potentially even leaving the country. People, the airspace is closed, but people are leaving the country by land wherever they can. But yes, I think this can also bring instability and chaos to the country. Potentially, we've seen in some of the neighboring countries, it could even lead to situations like civil war, and armed militias being formed. We saw in Iraq that happening. We saw in Afghanistan what instability and sort of this foreign attack and invasion can do to the country. So a lot can happen. I mean, it's still hard to predict right now. This is just an aerial bombing, but this is an escalation. And down the line, we can see the examples of Iraq and Afghanistan. I hope it doesn't come to the point of boots on the ground and American troops going to Iran. But if escalations happen, that's also not an impossible scenario to imagine right now.